That drone is very difficult because you can't hold it still because it has an attitude sensor in it, so it knows where it is in this plane, but it doesn't have anything to hold it still. So once you start moving, it's just going to keep drifting in that direction. And those are really, really handy to practice with. For one thing, it doesn't have lights on it. So you have to look at the props, and you have to keep it close by, and you need to be able to realize that once you turn that around and the yellow props are facing towards you, now everything's backwards. So you go stick forward, and you're going to get one right in the eye.
And for those of you that don't know, Dr. Belcher and his cohort over here, Joel Bressler, are heading up the first high school UAV flying club in a partnership with Polk State College. So that's something that's happening here on our campus. Go ahead, ma'am.
We have a 333 exemption application in place, and we're caught in the backlog. Do you know what's happening with those?
Great question. So there's a couple of things that may or may not happen. The first is the FAA says that they will reach out to you to discuss the status of your 333 exemption. You really have two options. If you are issued a 333 exemption with a certificate of authorization, you are allowed to follow that 333 exemption with the issued restrictions until it expires, which is, again, about 2 years. Alternatively, you can use the Part 107 rules in lieu of that. The only thing you can't do is you can't mix and match. So, for example, if the 333 exemption requires a pilot certificate and a medical certificate and gives you a certain location authorization, you have to follow those rules. If you don't want to follow those rules, you can follow the 107 rules, but then you have to be in full compliance with the 107 rules.
And that changed after I had my 333 exemption number sewn on my shirts. The next batch of shirts that won't be there anymore.
Hi, yes, I'm an amateur photographer. I'm also a rail fan. In other words, I like to take pictures of trains. If I get a drone and I'm all legal and I'm registered and I'm on public property and I fly it over CSX property like a rail yard or something, can I be arrested for trespassing?
Okay, well, that's a great question, and I'm gonna just say that it depends on which state you're in. Every state, for the most part, has started developing different drone rules, and I have to claim a certain level of ignorance to the entire nation. Obviously, in Florida, there's some privacy rules that apply to drones. In other states, I can't really speak to that. Highly recommend that you look at not only the state laws, but also if there's any ordinances or local community restrictions. Everyone is looking at this just a little bit differently, so I can't really answer your question fully at this point.
I definitely want to consult with an attorney on that before you did anything. Dan might have some insight.
Yeah, actually, the aviation attorney that was at one of the other functions that I spoke at, he's really good. Well, there's a lot of guys out there that are really good. But one thing you could do, just right off the copy or contact the railroad. Well, I mean, that's possible. Actually, I used to do hydraulic component repair, so I used to, like Central Florida Railroad, I used to actually do work for them. And some of the people, if you can get to the right person in the office, you can ask them, tell them, explain your entire situation, just like you would do if you're going to, explain your flight operation to the FAA. And maybe they, offer them a photo.
If I'm on public property and the drone is over public property.
Well, here's going to hand you a mic there. So
If I'm on public property and the drone is over public property, like a road or something like that, photographing something in the distance, I should be okay, theoretically, I would think.
Yeah, and then, actually that before you fly app could also tell you if you're in a zone that it's okay to fly, if it's okay to fly. You still want to make the engineers of the train, of course the drone's not going to do too much to a freight train, but if it's antiques and stuff like that, you certainly don't want to damage, somebody that might be traveling down the tracks or something with an antique.
All right, here we go.
I'd like to address this to the doctor. That was an excellent presentation. My question is, those notes that you had, are they proprietary, or could we get a copy of them that you used for your presentation?
No, if you'd like to send an email to me, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of the presentation.
And it's also available on FloridaAviationNetwork.com on their YouTube channel, so you can check that out later on. Come over here.
Dan, did you have to get clearance from the FAA before you did the Marriott downtown point of interest?
Yeah, actually, on that one, because Part 107 it was still in development. They hadn't even released it when we did that on the Part 107. I did talk to the client. I talked to actually the FAA official in Orlando and the one in Tampa, and because we were staying really close to the building, there is kind of a rule where if you're the 5 mile rule, it did intersect that, but I made a phone call, did all the safety procedures, but didn't file a COA on that. The COA, nobody's really sure where that's going to go. I really would love to see it pushed towards the application, and that way it's like instant approval. Because we're in a now network. I mean, everybody wants instant access to everything now, and if they integrate all of that into the app, actually I've said this before, if they use that Before You Fly app and then integrate that to the county parks, that way then you'll know that if somebody puts it up in a county park, and it pings your registration number, all those different places, except for where you get like authorization. You can go, a lot of times I get hired to do a job where it's near a county park. Like for instance, the West Florida Film Association, they won't even authorize a drone to fly. And when we did the kayak video, we did most of that in the area where I fly for the city all the time. So I was able to work under the city's apron and under the city's insurance. And then when I did the stuff in Tierra Verde, we were out of a hazardous wear. That was one thing that we didn't touch on. Heliports. You hear rotors, land your drone. I mean, because I have a friend of mine who's also an Inspire 1 pilot. He's the rescue pilot for Tampa General, and he's had a few near misses already. And that's another, airports are one thing, but there's heliports everywhere.
And just under the new 107 rules, one of the things that they're doing to try to streamline that process of approval is to receive permission to operate in controlled airspace. So that's B, C, D, and E. You can do that through their new online portal, which will go active August 29th.
Some of the leaders we have in that is our friends at Lakeland Linder Regional Airport who are helping with our UAV programs here. Anyone else out there? All right.
I've been stockpiling my questions here. I got 3 of them for you. The first one is the difference between an FAA number and an N number, legally wise, as far as drones go.
Right, so you're going to get a registration number, and so that's a good question, and that goes a little beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But generally speaking, the registration number is for accountability purposes. As you start pushing in N numbers, now you're talking about compliance with other FAA regulations registering as an aircraft. And so that gets into some of the other parts of the FARs that really don't apply to the small UAS components. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. The first time that, or actually the first Inspire 1 that we bought I paid the $5 into the old-fashioned carbon copy paper and requested an N number on that. This one actually I requested 717, was my daughter's birthday, and put that on there and filed for it, but then of course it all went away. So you get a registration number that covers you for all your drone aircraft under 55 pounds.
Some people are under the impression that you have to have an N number for commercial use, which I think is inaccurate, but some people feel that way in the business. The second question was brought up just now when you start talking about heliports. As far as 5 miles from an airport, some people feel that if you're within 5 miles of a heliport, that's required authorization or approval. If it's a certified heliport or a private heliport on an island or whatever.
I have to defer that.
Yeah, but the heliport though is active or inactive. If there's a helicopter, if it's an inactive heliport, not a helicopter sitting actually on the pad, or turbines winding up and blades starting to swing, or piston engine, whatever, then it's an active heliport. And of course, just remembering that a drone is the bottom of the food chain. It's not carrying a human. You don't want to be just like these guys that are out west and inhibiting the firefighters. We don't want to be that. We want. My mission is to protect the beauty of this technology for what it is.
Okay, I know this is probably not going to be a perfect answer for you, but they used to have the old certificate of authorization, the blanket COAs. The FAA addressed the heliports and the blanket COAs as at least 2 miles, but they've said nothing about how it applies in the new rules to my knowledge. So I know that's not a perfect answer, but you can only look back to what was previously addressed.
And then the last question is in reference to airspace. How long do you suspect that they'll put ADS-B requirements on these?
Wow.
Yeah, so how long do you expect they'll do ADS-B on UAVs?
I think that's anyone's guess at this point.
2 days to 20 years. Right in there. All right, anyone else out here?
It'd be nice if it was instant. It'd be nice if it was just instant access on and off. You need to fly, like, sometimes we have clients in commercial areas that want a shot of a building and they need it for a project tomorrow. And, if they find a videographer that's available, and the guy, the thing is if they make it too difficult for us to perform that task, the ones who are safety conscious, then somebody who's not safety conscious is going to jump right in there and do the job and potentially hurt somebody. So if the FAA makes it easy and rapid access to that approval process, that's going to make it easier and better for everybody in the long run.
And just to add to that, from a safety perspective, just to give you an idea, the FAA actually tracks the number of reported, I don't want to say the word near misses, but visual identifications of UAS or suspected UAS with an aircraft. And right now, the reports of that suggest it happens about 100 times a month. So there's still challenges out there. It'll be very interesting to see if Part 107 addresses some of those challenges through education. But I think we're going to see slight modifications of the rules over time to try to tweak and improve safety.
All right. Anyone else here? We got one more here coming over us. All right.
I just wondered if you've had any issues with invasion of privacy or privacy issues. Is that a problem, or has that been a problem?
Well, not for me, actually. The last thing I spoke at, it was pretty simple. Just said, don't be a creep. Don't be a creep with your drone. It's a lot of times if I'm over an area where a wide shot with a high resolution camera, they do it for golf. The camera that hangs, like what my son was putting on that camera you could zoom all the way into that and just about read a license tag. I've been in a helicopter where I could zoom in with the camera. These drones don't zoom, thankfully, because of the counterbalance mechanism with the lens, because if you move, it has to have a balanced lens. But their privacy issue can be anywhere. People are doing worse with their phones. I haven't run into it, but as a rule, if I'm in a new area, I don't hit the record button or take a picture until I know that the area is clear. I could tell you a quick funny story from a boat race that happened down in Key West one time, and the TV crew that was in there, we have some kids and stuff, but the TV crew, they saw some sunbathers on a dock, and they figured they'd go get some shots of it. And they found out when they got closer and closer and looked at the shot that they were not the gender that they requested. So that was a thing that went wrong real quick. So yeah, just the biggest thing. Respect everybody's privacy.
And I believe in the state of Florida, if memory serves, the law actually falls under civil law, not criminal law. So as far as I understand, I keep fairly close track of it in the news. Haven't heard of anybody getting sued yet.
All right. Anyone else out there? I want to give a big thanks to Dan from videophotog.com, Dr. Ryan Wallace from Polk State College, and polk.edu. They offer the only bachelor's degree in the state of Florida from a public institution, and all of our great volunteers here at the Florida Aviation Network. You can find more out about them at floridaaviationnetwork.com, and year-round out here at Sun and Fun and the Aerospace Center for Excellence. So I'll turn it over to Diego out here, so thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you very much for being here, and yes, a good hand. Those were very explicit and good presentations about aviation safety and about aviation education. And Dr. Ryan and Mr. Foard, we thank you again. Anyway, until we see you next time.